True love has the power to break down every wall of doubt and distance. The story of Ly Tu Diem and his mother is a heartfelt journey of recognition and acceptance. From silent observation, Tuan's mother slowly realized Diem's genuine love, her kindness, and her quiet sacrifices. No longer hiding her thoughts, she openly embraced Diem and even asked her son to bring her home for dinner, a gesture of warmth and belonging. This emotional turning point marks a new chapter of love and family. Subscribe now to follow the full story and experience every touching moment. For many days, Tuan's mother had carried a storm of doubts in her heart. She was a woman who had lived long enough to see how fleeting emotions could be, how people could mask their intentions with sweet gestures and gentle smiles. So when Tuan first brought Diem into their lives, she had stayed silent, observing from the shadows. She told herself not to be deceived, not to let her guard down so easily. After all, Tuan was her only son, the one she had protected through hardships, and she would never allow anyone to hurt him, no matter how unintentionally. Yet, as the days went by, silence became a stage upon which Diem revealed herself, not through grand declarations, but through the quiet, steady tenderness that could not be fabricated. It was in the smallest moments that the truth of Diem's heart began to shine through. Tuan's mother remembered watching from the kitchen doorway one evening when Tuan came home exhausted after a long day, his shoulders slumped, his voice weary. She expected Diem to chatter endlessly or to complain about his absence, but instead, the young woman simply walked over, placed a gentle hand on his back, and whispered words so soft they almost disappeared into the air. "Sit down. You need to rest. I'll take care of the rest tonight." She had seen the way Diem prepared a bowl of soup with the care of someone who understood not just recipes, but the language of love. The way she checked the temperature, blew gently on the spoon before offering it, as though every detail mattered. That single act, simple yet profound, lingered in the mother's mind far longer than she expected. There were other moments too, like the time Tuan had a persistent cough, and before he could even protest, Diem had rushed to prepare a herbal remedy, staying awake half the night just to check if he was breathing easily. Or the afternoons when she would quietly help sweep the yard, water the flowers, and make sure his favorite chair was always placed in the sunlight. None of these things were done with an air of show. None of them felt rehearsed. They were the natural gestures of someone whose heart was anchored deeply to another's well-being. Slowly, Tuan's mother began to see that Diem wasn't trying to prove herself. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was simply being who she was, a kind, giving soul whose love for Tuan was written in her every action. And that realization began to change something inside her. The walls of suspicion she had built so carefully started to crack, letting in a light she hadn't wanted to acknowledge before. For years, she had worried that no one would truly understand her son, that no woman would be willing to stand by him with patience and warmth. But now, she could see it with her own eyes. Diem did love Tuan for what she could give him, nor for any surface reason. She loved him wholly, with a quiet devotion that asked for nothing in return. It was the kind of love a mother secretly prayed her child would find, even if she had been too afraid to admit it aloud. In that moment, Tuan's mother felt a stirring of humility and hope. Perhaps she had been too harsh, too guarded, too afraid of losing control. Perhaps it was time to let go of her doubts and to open her heart to the woman who had already proven herself without a single word of defense. Watching Diem laugh softly with Tuan, eyes filled with a warmth that could not be faked, she knew this was not a fleeting emotion. This was love, real, steadfast, and pure. And for the first time, Tuan's mother allowed herself to believe in it. One quiet afternoon, after the weight of her reflections had settled into certainty, Toan's mother decided she could no longer remain in silence. For too long, she had let her skepticism shape the way she viewed Diem, keeping her thoughts locked away as if her approval were a prize to be withheld. But now, her heart was lighter, freed by the truth she had witnessed with her own eyes. She called Toan into the living room, her voice steady, though inside she felt the tremor of something momentous. He entered with his usual warmth, smiling as though unaware of the inner battle she had been waging. She studied him for a long moment, the familiar curve of his face, the resilience in his posture, the traces of weariness that Diem always seemed to soothe. And then she spoke, not with hesitation, but with a clarity that surprised even herself. "Toan, I have been watching, I have been listening, and now I must say this aloud. Diem, she is a good woman." The words felt heavy, yet liberating as they passed her lips. She saw the flicker of surprise in her son's eyes, quickly followed by a stillness, as if the moment might shatter. But she continued, determined to let the truth find its place in their lives. "I have seen the way she cares for you, not with grand gestures or with empty words, but with patience, with kindness, with a love that is real, and I cannot deny it any longer. She truly loves you, Toan, and she is good." The room seemed to still around them. Toan's breath caught, his heart pounding in his chest as though the words had struck directly into the center of his being. For so long, he had carried the quiet hope that his mother would see what he had seen, that she would look past her doubts and recognize the heart of the woman he loved. And now to hear it spoken aloud, to hear the acceptance he had longed for, it was almost overwhelming. His eyes shimmered with unspoken gratitude, though his voice refused to rise above a whisper. "Mother, are you saying that you accept her?" A small, gentle smile touched her lips. It was not the smile of someone conceding defeat, but of someone finally embracing peace. "Yes," she said, her words carrying the weight of finality. "If you love her truly, then I will not stand in your way. In fact, I will welcome her, because a mother knows when love is genuine, and Diem's love is as real as the air we breathe. I would be blind not to see it." For the first time, Toan felt the walls that had stood between his love and his family begin to crumble. It was as if a barrier had been lifted, one he had carried heavily on his shoulders without realizing how deeply it burdened him. His mother's words were not only an acceptance of Diem, but also a validation of his own choices, his own heart. And in that moment, a new bond was formed between mother and son, one rooted in understanding, in trust, in a shared recognition of love's truth. Silence lingered after her words, but it was no longer the silence of distance. It was a silence filled with possibility, with warmth, with the quiet rhythm of hearts finally in harmony. Toan wanted to speak, to thank her, to promise her that she would never regret this choice, but his voice was caught in the swell of emotion, so he simply reached for her hand. She let him hold it, and in that simple gesture, mother and son sealed the beginning of a new chapter. And though she did not say it aloud, in her heart, she whispered to herself, "At last, I can let go of my fears. At last, I can give my son the blessing of love unhindered." But Toan's mother did not stop with words alone. Acceptance, she knew, was more than a simple declaration. It needed to be shown, lived, and offered in ways that could be felt. After all, Diem had already given so much of herself without asking for acknowledgement. It was only right then that she be received with the warmth she deserved. That evening, as the sun melted into shades of amber across the windows, Toan's mother looked at her son with a softness he had not seen in years. Toan, she said, her voice calm but carrying an unspoken tenderness. It is time you invited Diem here. Not as a guest, not as an outsider, but as someone we welcome into our home. I want her to sit at our table, to share our food, to feel that she belongs here. For a moment, Toan was stunned, his heart leaping in a way he could not contain. He had imagined this day countless times, but to hear his mother express it openly was almost like hearing a long-lost melody return. His chest tightened, his throat thickened with emotion, but joy spilled through him like light breaking across the horizon. "Mother, you mean it? You want me to bring her here for dinner?" The smile that formed on her lips carried both grace and finality. "Yes, my son. I want to prepare the meal myself. It will be my way of showing her what I could not say before, that she is welcome, that I see her goodness, and that I want her to be part of this family." As those words settled into the room, Toan felt his heart swell with gratitude. Without hesitation, he reached for his phone, his fingers trembling as he dialed Diem's number. When her gentle voice answered, he could hardly keep his voice steady. "Diem," he said, almost breathless, "Mother wants you to come to dinner. She wants you here with us." There was a pause on the other end, silence heavy with disbelief, and then the sound of a breath catching, followed by tears that spilled faster than words. She 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 invited me? Dam's voice quivered with both joy and relief, the weight of months of quiet endurance suddenly lifting. Tears blurred her vision as she pressed the phone closer to her ear. For so long, she had loved without expecting recognition, believing that if her devotion was true, time would reveal it. And now it had. Her heart trembled with gratitude, not only for Toan's unwavering faith, but for the mother who had finally seen her for who she really was. "I'll come," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "Tell your mother thank you. Thank you so much." That night, as Diem prepared herself for the dinner, she felt as though she was stepping into a new life. No longer just Toan's beloved, no longer a shadow at the edge of his family story, but a woman who was about to be welcomed, honored, and embraced. In her mind, she could already picture the table set with care, the aroma of home-cooked dishes filling the air, and the moment when she would look across the table and meet the eyes of the woman who once doubted her but now opened her heart. It was not merely a dinner, it was a promise, a beginning, the first chapter of belonging. And for Toan's mother, who quietly planned the menu in her own heart, each dish became a silent confession. The rice would be fragrant with acceptance, the soup simmering with kindness, the tea steeped in forgiveness and newfound hope. She wanted every detail of that evening to tell Diem, "You are no longer outside these walls. You are family now." And though no one spoke it aloud yet, they all felt it. The gentle unfolding of a bond that had been tested, doubted, and finally, tenderly made whole.
Hello, xin chào tất cả các khán giả của kênh Lý Tu Diem Review. Vậy là trong tập phim ngày hôm nay của chúng ta thì mẹ của CEO Toan đã chính thức chấp nhận Lý Tu Diem là người yêu của Toan và không hề ngăn cấm hai người đến với nhau nữa. Từ bây giờ bà sẽ cho Toan và Diễm tự do yêu đương và tự do đến với nhau nếu muốn, vì bà đã cảm động tình yêu chân thành của Diễm dành cho Toan và sự tốt bụng thánh thiện của cô liệu rằng sự chấp nhận này của mẹ Toàn có phải là một khởi đầu mới tốt đẹp cho một tương lai đầy hạnh phúc của hai người hay không. Còn rất là nhiều tình tiết mới sẽ được xuất hiện ở các tập tiếp theo. Các bạn hãy đăng ký kênh để nhận được thông báo mới nhất về các tập phim sẽ được phát sóng hàng ngày trên kênh Ly Tu Diem Review nhé. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều và đừng quên hãy bấm nút like, chia sẻ và để lại bình luận ở dưới video nhé. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại các bạn vào tập sau. Bye bye!